I say good morning, thank you. I connect. Well, what happened yesterday?
A ABEAR, Associação Brasileira das Empresas Aéreas, foi criada em 2012 com a missão de estimular o hábito de voar no Brasil. Trabalhamos em conjunto com empresas, entidades e órgãos do setor aéreo pelo crescimento sustentável do transporte de passageiros e cargas. Cultivamos a transparência e o diálogo permanente com agentes públicos e privados, consumidores e formadores de opinião. A ABEAR se tornou a principal referência sobre aviação comercial e transformou a imagem do setor no Brasil. Nossas publicações e canais digitais reúnem as mais completas informações sobre o setor. Além de contribuir para conectar mais lugares e pessoas, apoiamos iniciativas que transformam a vida de milhares de brasileiros. Mais de 9.000 órgãos e tecidos são transportados gratuitamente a cada ano. A democratização do transporte de passageiros é o que nos move. Promover o crescimento da aviação é contribuir para o desenvolvimento do Brasil.
Pense em um sonho, daquele que você gostaria muito que se realizasse. Agora imagine se isso fosse possível hoje. E que o segredo para que esse sonho se realize seja pessoas. Pessoas empenhadas e unidas em torno de um propósito. Esse é o Grupo Águia, o mais diversificado e completo grupo de turismo do Brasil e também o mais apaixonado pelo que faz. Afinal, viajar, conhecer novas culturas e lugares é fazer acontecer dentro de nossos clientes a possibilidade de alcançar não só distâncias, mas os seus corações. Porque quando olhamos para o céu, vemos mais que possibilidades, vemos um universo de caminhos. Caminhos que às vezes escolhemos para ir ao encontro de grandes desafios. Como integrar paixão e excelência em uma só experiência. E juntos, vencer dificuldades e gerir competências para realizar melhor sonhos como este que você acabou de imaginar. Porque é olhando para os céus que sentimos vontade de voar cada vez mais alto, de começar e recomeçar sempre. Seja na sua cidade favorita ou em um novo lugar. Afinal, o desconhecido é para nós uma forma de energia, porque é nele que aprendemos e crescemos. Por isso, somos diversificados. É do ser humano ser assim. É humano ter coragem e garra. Conhecemos, incentivamos e valorizamos em cada uma das pessoas que trabalham conosco essa força, essa alegria. Fortalecendo o nosso conceito de grupo, compartilhando ideias, conhecimentos e realizações. Para que o nosso maior sucesso seja alcançarmos o nosso maior propósito, a felicidade. Grupo Águia, dê asas aos seus sonhos.
Entrou? Bom dia. Bom dia para todos. É um prazer muito grande ter vocês aqui hoje de novo. Uma honra, na realidade. A gente está muito feliz com a participação de todos. Já temos aproximadamente mais de 400 pessoas inscritas.
Which was to be able to invite to this event the largest number of people possible so that everybody can start understanding, talking about, and practicing sustainability, responsible tourism, and regenerative tourism. Today we have 4 panels, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. We have amazing topics. Once more, I recommend you watch all of them because we were able to bring together some truly iconic people. Now we will start with how the mobility chain embraces sustainability. Then we will have a very important panel discussing the Amazon with people who live in the Amazon, people who live in the Medium Xingu region, and they will be able to tell us how they deal with the situation, with the idea of sustainable tourism, how life is going in the Amazon right now. We have been getting very sad news with the level of deforesting, fires. So it's a hot topic, and we will have two representatives from the Xikrin people, who are inhabitants of the Medium Xingu region, and two professionals who work with them. So this will truly be an amazing debate. During the afternoon, we will have a panel on sustainable tourism in Brazil. For people who are not familiar, they will be able to learn what amazing people are already doing in Brazil. They have been doing it for a long time, even in the direction of sustainable tourism, responsible tourism, community-based tourism, empowering
Fecha.
communities, and so on. And we will end the day at 5 discussing about tourism and regeneration, a way out for everyone. We will launch this proposal so everyone can reflect and maybe continue down this path, thinking on how tourism can be regeneration tool for the planet. In this last panel, we will have one of the world's foremost experts talking about regenerative design. So today we will have a very amazing day, and we will end the day with a very interesting proposal, which is very cutting edge in terms of what tourism has of new at this time in terms of sustainability, so that everyone can understand and engage. Going back to our panel, we are with true icons of Brazilian tourism. We have people who really represent our industry, who are very relevant for tourism and events. I'll introduce them briefly. We have Ricardo Ferreira. He's a great friend and a dear friend. He will be our moderator for this panel now. Ricardo was the executive vice president and member of the MCI Brazil Council. He's an amazing professional and influencer in tourism. During the pandemic, he organized a sensational group, a think tank, with 50 or more representatives, C-levels from tourism and the event industry in Brazil, with leading edge institutions, to see where we will be at by 2025. So Ricardo really has a gift and an ability to bring people together and promote debates that are really, really important. In addition to Ricardo, we have Eduardo Sanovickz. He's the president of the Brazilian Association of Airline Companies, ABEAR. He has a degree in history and a PhD in communication sciences, and he is the professor of the tourism school of the School of Arts and Sciences of the University of São Paulo. He was director of Reed Exhibitions, vice president of International Congress and Convention Association, president of Embratur, president of tourism and Tourism and events in the city of São Paulo, and the director for tourism of the city government of Santos. We have Roberta Nonis. She's the founder of and CEO of Evento Único Consultoria, a consulting company specializing in business consulting for events and in the creation of educational content. She was awarded as Personality of the Year in the Caio Award in category Clients in 2016. She has been working with events for 35 years in the organization of trade fairs and congresses. She worked at AstraZeneca in Brazil as the manager for corporate events and travel from 2005 to 2017. She's a guest teacher and guest professor in the courses of events in Senac and IMB Morumbi. She is truly our event expert. And we have the immense pleasure of having Toni Sando here, a business administrator with an MBA in business management from the Getúlio Vargas Foundation. He worked in the financial market in the group Accor and as general manager for South America. He's currently this executive president of Foundation 25 de Janeiro and president of UNEDESTINOS, the National Union of Destination Entities. He's a member of the Brazilian Academy of Events and Tourism and the first vice president of the Latin America and Caribbean Convention and Visitors Bureau. I have nothing further to add. I'll turn the floor over to Ricardo because with such a team, we need to start because you'll have a lot of rich content to listen. So thank you, Ricardo. The floor is yours. Carla, thank you very much. It's a great joy to be here. I followed, sometimes very closely, sometimes a bit further, the comings and goings with the preparation of this very amazing event. It's great to see things truly happening now. Our industry, the industry of mobility, we're often seen as a transgressor by specialists in sustainability. Planes burn a lot of CO2, but they allow us to explore the world. They allow us to go throughout the world. Hotels multiply. They provide comfort within each one's budget, but the offers we make to guests have an impact on the environment. Destinations try to get their revenues based on the nature, but they're often not quite careful in preserving the nature. Events bring people together, they motivate, they inform, they bring people together, but they have beautiful scenarios and so on and so forth. So I think that broadly, something that provides so many good things in the short term, when we try to look at the medium and long term, this might not be as good. We are concerned with the environment. So we'll talk to these three amazing people. Roberta, in a positive contest, what do we have in terms of good practice? What will we do to balance this opportunity in the short term with this concern of making the world better and better for our children, our grandchildren, and our community? Everything at a moment when the pandemic will not be going away so soon, and we have more and more facts.
Ricardo Ferreira por Ricardo Ferreira. Eu sou um gaúcho, né, que estou em São Paulo há muito tempo, agora estou morando em Santo Antônio do Pinhal. Eu estou com 62 anos, né? E faço
several things. Until the pandemics, I was very much into business acclamations committees. Now I'm involved in acquisitions and mergers of companies that want to hold hands, that want to work together. So, Roberta Nonis by Roberta Nonis. What hasn't been said about you that you think people should know? I am from São Paulo. I root for Palmeiras. My neighborhood is Moca. I'm in love with events since the age of 18 or 19. And then by chance, really randomly, I was inserted in this world and I have changed college applications, and it actually changed my life. So I am an inventologist, truly. It's in my blood. Sanovickz by Sanovickz. I spent half of my life in Santos, though I was born in São Paulo. And most of my professional life is about events too. If we actually analyze my resume, I started organizing events, seminars, meetings, and then it grew bigger and more complex, all the way to the auto trade show. So I feel very much at home with you. really working with people like you, Toni, Roberta, really they're benchmarks for me. I'm a big fan. I'm rather biased. Toni Sando by Toni Sando. The floor is yours. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I've been in the third sector, working for the association for some years, but my professional experience, one third, has been in the financial markets. I've also worked in the marketing department. I've worked in the hotel industry, and now at the Bureau, we've been working on the multi-sector type of facets, meaning the main advantage of an entity like ours is a marketing type of entity. Marco has worked with us, and actually, to this day, we have his fruits here. So we have very good looks of events, catering, tourism, venues, meaning we can truly have a holistic outlook of everything and try and contribute with all sectors. Everyone, now let's look at the situation, at the scenario. If we look at different styles, let's look at lives and an event sector. I'd say we have a very representative overall snapshot. What are the main topics for every sector? Maybe Roberta, you should go first. Sustainability, you mean, right? We, I've done congress, I've done conventions, trade shows, but recently it's been the pharmaceutical industry. So, corporate events, really. So, the past 3 years, I've been working as a consultant and I have contact with event managers from different sectors, not only pharmaceuticals. What I what is my point of view today? Very recently now, tops 3 years, events, corporate events area is now concerned in doing something different when it comes to social responsibility and sustainability. So we have the one colleague, Rodrigo Cesar. He is very well known in the sector, and due to his position at Roche, he's cleared and implemented sustainability practices and social responsibility at his events, the events that he runs. Now, with that, he's been acknowledged internationally by the company he works for, mainly inspiring other managers from major companies with very high with high investments in events following his footsteps. So these are actions geared to diminish um, plastic paper use in events, but nothing really profound when it comes to what we have discussed previously when we spoke about the responsibility of being able to exclude or benefit the one vendor, even if this other vendor is more expensive, if this vendor actually is compliant to social responsibility and sustainability in his business, meaning choosing a transfer company that already has in their freight in their fleet driving electric cars, zero waste hotels, ho- um, hotels and venues that recycle. Those are examples. That means choose vendors, select vendors, exclude and benefit vendors that have this kind of best practices in place. We're not quite there as the final user, as the person who actually hires. Now, who hires? The person who writes the briefing. So the person who does the briefing gets to hire a very robust supply chain. They are at the top. They have the making power. So when it's top down, I think the impact will be greater because they will make the demands in the briefing. Now, the people hiring.
Now, I don't think we're actually late because I think it's rather a natural kind of process. If you think historically, until very recently, I myself had I have myself overprint, leaving boxes of printouts in different conferences rooms. And that has an impact on cost of the event and environmental impact. So you see, the main motivation is to truly well manage resources because it's come to a moment that funds for events, even though it's a marketing fund, the budget is there to be spent. Still, the the evolution of strategic management has led more mature companies to start looking at their expenses in even a more detailed, mature way, and really turning event planners in responsible people and better spending. So maybe that's been the main driving force and the main motivation. But as an additional motivation, we've seen waste and diminishment. But still, I think we are very much at the beginning. We have a long way to go, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement within this manager and planner community that I lead and coordinate. We've spoken about these simpler practices in a meeting in May, and I want to get back to this because at this community I created to empower managers and planners because they are at the top of our chain. And if we can raise their knowledge awareness, if we can raise their empowerment levels within their own companies, because even if they are at an events department, and regardless of the sectors, financial, agribusiness, pharmaceutical, within their own organization, they can actually stand their ground by bringing great practices to events and helping business. So that's my role within the community. It is a general mindset shift in this topic. So, Roberta, when we speak about the two topics that is so relevant in events world, we're speaking of choices of vendors who are sustainable in practice. And you're also talking about waste management. So, do you think, Roberta, these are the two main topics? Absolutely, yes. And we have to think how strategic management in events world does not take place, still not taking place in several companies. Yes, we gotta keep change going, we gotta keep this up, and everybody at their maturity level, meaning you do with the one subject, you evolve to the next, and so on and so forth. Edu, my darling, what about for aviation, airline? What are the main two topics related to sustainability? Ricardo, I want to be very candid today. Really be speak from the heart. Uh, and someone is drilling. There's a wall being drilled right behind me. So apologies for the noise. Second, I want to be very transparent to those listening to us. I'd say the main priority now is to survive, really. We cannot really uh, give it any other way. I'll talk about this any other way. Now, sustainability for us is a very long history, and we have milestones, challenges, and successes. Now, younger people may not know because for the past 7, 10 years, some people don't know who started flying. But those who are older remember. Do you remember airline tickets? There was like 5 grams envelope, pages and pages, and every 10 air tickets was like 1 kilogram. Imagine today airline tickets with 100 million air tickets. Approximately 5,000 tons per year were consumed only to issue air tickets. And And we invested some millions in technology. We've eliminated. It's basically paper free. So this is a success story. Plus, we have other commitments. So I'm gonna think about sustainability in a more ample manner. The one program that we have outside that really excites me that it's being implemented, and we actually mentioned at the beginning of our event, called Asas do Bem, meaning wings for the good. So it's free air transportation for the universal Brazilian health system of organs. Last year we had over 7,000 organs being flown all over Brazil, saving lives, because we've managed to have the one liver being donated get to the other side of the country in timely, and before that was absolutely impossible. In I'm speaking of 2005, 2006, when the program begins, and we joined the program in 2013. So there is a very beautiful outcomes there. But our main challenge and the main topic to discuss is aviation and airlines. Historically, is one of the main CO2 polluters. It only loses to cattle raising. Now, our main bet, our main investment in the past years has been, on one side, technology. Yesterday, I actually was looking up this up. I was doing some research. In the past 10 years, the world has diminished by 6% its CO2 emissions at every 100 kilometers. Now, today, we're 6% behind when compared to 10 years ago. And that's due to innovation and technology investment. And the other pillar that is very rich for debate is biokerosene. All relevant companies in Brazil and in the world take part in an institute and in a research institute. They fund a research institute and have been reusing biokerosene. We have had had flights using only uh, biokerosene. Now, question is, why isn't biokerosene being broadly used? If it's possible to fly on biokerosene, why not fully biokerosene? We've done this with air tickets, with the paper. Why can't we escalate, scale this up to meet the demands? So today we are facing a challenge, and airlines have a planet commitment called CORSIA. CORSIA is an acronym, and it's a very long wording. But the commitment is to keep and expand these commitment and attitudes, that it goes beyond being paper free, recycling, etc. But it is the ultimate goal is that by 2050 we have the same levels of emissions that we had back in 2005. This is aviation's commitment at first, and it's ongoing, and it's being pursued, and the goals have been met so far, the incremental goals that we have along the way. Very interesting indeed. So I'm thinking everybody's following up very closely what's been happening in terms of challenge. Indeed, airlines are now prioritizing to survive, to try and really overcome this major crisis. But you are highlighting two major topics. But I think I would bundle that to the one. The CORSIA is to keep and expand investments so that aviation can be more sustainable and have the same amount of carbon emissions that we had back in 2005 in 2050. Now, the examples that you mentioned, digital ticketing, no more paper ticketing, also air manuals, air handbooks that pilots would carry in their briefcases, all that have been replaced by electronic versions. Biokerosene also has a major role, and that is the topic, is the one major topic that has a breakdown with several different subtopics. The one thing to highlight is a major accomplish with airlines, which is with very attractive prices, they've enabled people to fly, more people to fly. There's the negative side, obviously, but those affordable price points should be kept so that everybody can fly without really impacting the environment. Wouldn't you agree with better management? Absolutely. All that exists if companies grow, keeping their self-sustainable sustainability objectives, keeping their financial health, and that's the main challenge, to keep living through living through a major, most important crisis in our history. Now, we have several associations, Amigos do Bem, etc., and we have very clear um, objectives. They have three internal dimensions that they work on, and one of them include paper free. One of them is actually not only to have paper free pre-booking, but also the flight be fully free paper, and that's paper free. Pardon me, and that is why I tell you that this at first can be more expensive, 27% more expensive, but still we have regulations that really force us to do bureaucratic compliance that do not enable us to be paper free, but we are evolving. Tony, you have the two hats. You are the guy, the executive president of Visit São Paulo. Visit São Paulo has mega events, including Carnival, the gay parade, major events. I remember the one study about the environmental impact that these events have in the city. And you're working very hard on different destinations that gather 45 different convention bureaus. So the two topics, Tony, that are most relevant, I don't know if you're gonna, what hat are you gonna wear? Visit São Paulo or the other one? What are the main relevant topics in your opinion related to sustainability in your for you, Antonio? What happens in São Paulo is very similar to what happens in different states. What we see, the visitor side and the convention side, we see the events produce solid waste. It increases water consumption. It's very noisy, especially when it comes to the assembling and setting up. Socioeconomically, it generates traffic, security. It interferes with the local community, but it has the good side, which is more tax collection, more tourism, traffic, better infrastructure, uh, and it employs people. So there's a good and the bad side. The May Trade Show, the main sustainability feature was to claim that they actually offset carbon emissions, and by that they thought the sustainability issue would be sorted. But we know it's not quite that. Social responsibility, economical, and environmental triad. It's more than just offsetting. I remember tourism trade shows where gifts such as paper pads, pens, and booths made out of wood, for example. Look at today trade shows, for example. It is look at today and before. Before it was a lot of waste of material, and we actually stopped and think about it. Back then, it made sense. Not today, though. The population has changed gradually, and it's been a lot of initiative to improve and apply sustainability practices. I'd say it's about education, about awareness, right off the bat to guide our children to have citizen behaviors. For example, if you see someone littering, that is one of the things that offend people. If you're driving, someone throws a can out of the window. So we actually pay more attention to other people's behavior. For example, face masks. When you notice someone not wearing face masks, we actually get annoyed. It is a cultural kind of attitude and behavioral attitude kind of shift and change. Now in São Paulo, we have the sustainability event called Virada Sustentável. It's the one full solid week with collective works, with different graffiti, uh, street art. Streets will be closed just to debate those. So that's what's been happening. We've been working on awareness raising and importance. Now, with the pandemic, a lot has become more obvious and clear. We wish we could be together, but we can't. But communication don't need huge stages anymore. Getting plenty of attention more than actual content. Now we have content being conveyed through digital means, being more objective with very specific topics, not with no waste. And what we have observed is that a group and association of events, bureaus and associations, we started designing practical activities, how everybody's carrying out their sustainable activities. Maceió stood out because they have a complete handbook on sustainability. And on this particular handbook, the government is involved, trade associations are involved, so that you can actually, for example, get a license to run your event. You have to comply to very strict environmental criteria, otherwise you can't get your license. And there are other initiatives, very interesting, very exciting, happening, so that the event can take place sustainably. Even though sustainable events are not taking place right now, when they're back, they will be back in a sustainable practice. Now, I'm gonna give you some examples of. I want to share good examples with of good practices. Really interesting to hear from you about major events, and what the one thing you said really covers all. We want to keep the benefits of running major events, major trade shows and setting ups, but what needs to be done is actually minimize environmental impact. And that topic for you, you've made that point, you've made very clear, especially with the event on sustainability, an event about sustainable events. And that is the example. Speak about uh, efforts and I'll understand. Get efforts done and I'll understand even better. I think that's the lesson. Exactly. Sao Paulo is a major destination for sustainability. Would you agree? Absolutely. But Sao Paulo is has higher complexity levels in comparison to others, especially when it comes to applying these. For example, Porto Galinha, they have a sustainable environmental tourism quota, meaning they help NGOs, for example, people with reduced mobility. Also, they help turtles and marine life. So they help both sides. They help the local community and environment. But some commerce bureaus have gathered people to help vulnerable families. Together with other associations, they've helped freelance professionals so that events, so that because they only work when there are events. So all of that involve sustainability. Atibaia also have home tax that helps monkeys around the region, in Atibaia region, the countryside. Matigar has carbon neutralization. There's a huge awareness with organic trash, all that. All that should be obvious, right? Because they're not obvious, they need to be implemented. I remember when I first arrived here in 2005, and the rule was all materials should be packed in recycled wrapping paper. Mind you, recycled wrapping paper was more expensive. So we really wanted to set the example for environmental practice, but it made it impossible because the paper didn't look nice. It was brown, didn't look nice. It was overpriced. So I remember the girls bringing those to events, carrying all those gifts to showcase an attitude. It was not easy, but I remember how chic it was to use recycled paper for wrapping paper. Exactly. Now you don't even need business cards. We do everything digitally. So the world is really driving this. I think the world has gone through a major waste period. I was watching a movie last night, a black and white movie, old, and I remember those old cars, the amount of material made to manufacture. You can manufacture 10 cars with the exact same amount of material that we did 50 years ago. Exactly. They didn't have sustainable actions like we did before. If we don't look after today, we won't have it tomorrow. Thank you so much, Toni. We're nearly hitting 100 people watching our talk. So nice. 10 a.m. Wednesday, 100 people with us. I think that goes to show really what really it's all about, which is from the mega agency event. Roberta, thinking about digital events, okay? What can be, what can happen in terms of sustainability and social development? I think digital events, they're here to stay, really. Actually, before we had all this technology available that we've been using now for 3 years now, what we had is a major resistance to this. Myself, as a manager, a planner, back then, I got this kind of requirement really from our global leaders to use more often digital tools so that we wouldn't have to move people so much, and also to help waste production. But look, Roberta, when I think of digital, this is very little. Digital impact events, I'm not a sustainability expert, but uh, the digital event impact is much smaller. Even if it's hybrid or fully virtual events, the environmental impact is really, really smaller. So I'd say this is a major indicator as to why digitals are here to stay and should stay. Back in the day when we were in the competition, the questions arose. The question was like, does your agency or does your booth company, does your transfer company, do you have any sustainable practice? What will your work? These questions were asked and were considered, but they didn't actually eliminate anything. So I think that has evolved and it's become an elimination factor. The companies that have this very strong in their values, those who agree on paying a little bit more, but have, for example, electric car fleets or gas cars, and with that generate less impact, and all recycling materials or reusable materials, it is an evolution. And I really bang on this point. This point that I mentioned, these are public events. It is done for a selected group, really. It's done for people. And I agree. If companies don't, companies may change, but if people need to change, let's say, for example, the people who leave tap open, tap running in their homes, how are they going to behave in an event? They can be at a convention center, they will waste water. But if we have people who recycle at home, most likely they will also mind recycling events. I myself, I recycle no matter where I am. I throw recyclable materials at the right bins. So I think this is top down, but undoubtedly, when it comes to digital impacts due to the pandemics, I was answering this question on Monday.
How to survive? What should we do? And I said, this is something I take to my life. Anything that is bad seems bad only, but at the end, it can bring very positive things. Even the worst things in our life, after a day, a week, a month, 10 years, we will say that was important because something good came out of it. So, if the pandemic will give us any positive takeaways, maybe it is this digital side that I tried to implement as a manager in a wider manner and I couldn't do. in my time, this has come to reduce this. Oh, but what about financial responsibility, which is the other side of this triangle? Well, maybe we need to readapt. Let's readapt. Do we need fewer freelancers? Do we need fewer producers? Maybe these people can specialize in digital data generated by a digital event, analytics. Maybe this is a moment for transformation in the market and for these professionals. But digital has practically zero impact. There's no impact. The last event I had, the last one, I had 40 people in person and 200 in total. So 160 were already not at the site. They were having the impact they would have normally at their homes. So definitely digital is here to contribute to this. I hope I have answered the question. It was tricky. I think you're saying that due to the circumstances brought on by the pandemics, virtual events have arrived. They are very strong today, and they have a close to zero environmental impact. The question is, you said the other day that you don't like the new normal, you like abnormal, right? I liked your point of view. At, at the time when this abnormality is eventually normalized, what will be the weight of hybrid events in the mix on the business divisions in companies? I think that we don't know the answer yet. Yes, some models in pharma, for example, my specialty, mini meetings, Salesforce trainings, not all of them. A convention, a cycle meeting, has a factor that goes beyond training by itself. There is a motivational factor there, there's a team building experience, and so on. So being there in person, I'm not just defending digital events. I love being there. I love in-person events. I had blue, yellow, green in my event, but even people who had the red, which said that they wanted to be 6 feet apart, they were hugging each other because people cannot resist human contact. Because being there in person is unmatched. But the part that can be done digitally will continue. I have no doubt that it will. Thank you very much, Roberta. Let me move on to Edu. Roberta mentioned something interesting. Two things actually that caught my eye. She said, oh, the sustainability experts. She used that expression. Edu, do you think sustainability, what do we need to do so that people like you and Toni can be the drivers for change? How can you get sustainability to go from the niches, from specialists, experts, and become a widely embraced cause? I think this is an interesting question. There's a whole movement towards sustainability, social responsibility, diversity. This is the these are the ideas of new capitalism. Capitalism trying to adapt to these times that that everybody uses everything at the same time, nothing will be left. But how? What do you think is the driver for us, for our topic, for it to become mainstream? I think we have two dimensions here, Ricardo. First, I believe that there is a dimension that comes from the history in each one's individual background. We cannot have a attitude of solidarity for people who have never been militant in activities of solidarity. It's not sustainability or commitment to sustainability that in isolation will pop up in your life. If you do not have a history of being minimally engaged during your education, during your creation as a human being, as a child in school, in social action groups, in political action groups, in culture groups, you will not be struck by lightning and become connected to sustainability. I think that this is a portion of the conversation that leads to my role as a professor in university and millions of people and colleagues that teach in elementary school or high school or work in NGOs, in actions involving people in topics related to developing the feelings of empathy. That if you are in Sao Paulo or you are in Rio or in Curitiba, you will also be thinking about human beings that live in Pantanal and the Amazon who are simply abandoned and on fire. It's what is happening there is abominable, but you will only become indignant about it if you already have this posture. This is what happens on the one hand. There's another side that is uh, the image of this executive that is in a growing number in organizations and companies. These are professionals, they are not necessarily company owners, but people who have their careers connected to delivering results, whether for owners or shareholders. As it becomes clearer and clearer that creating sustainable environments that are committed to environment, they are committed to the quality of life is something positive for the results we are delivering as professionals. This agenda will be a part of a building of planning. These contributions have to be brought together. There's no point in a traditional speaker, the ones who like PowerPoint saying, "Oh no," because the moment we add this to the result and this goal and this and the other, this is part of the conversation, and it should have an obvious response. Just like the conversation of resuming the economy, it's just staying at the surface and not going deeper into the debate. I think this will solve one side of the problem, but the other part of the engagement is related to building the mindset, and this has to be the part of education and debate, provided that we start. You can become someone who has empathy when you're 60, when you're 70. Human beings have that quality, but transforming that into a posture as a nation, as a country, has is connected to having this commitment. Tony, I have a question from you from Marta in Curitiba, and she says that Roberta discussed water running and being wasted. This bothers women more than men, and she believes that the issue of sustainability has at its roots a female issue, the idea of preservation. And do you agree with that? I think she might be familiar with your wife, Toni. I'm not sure. I'm not very fond of this thing of women are better in this or men are better in that or female sensitivity or something. I think everyone is the same. Gender is not really what changes responsibilities that people should have overnight. I think that with families, when we there was a sexist trend at the time that sisters were washing the dishes and the boys were playing in the living room. But I think that this time is true. I think that from now on, we have to look at it as a single human race that is quite concerned about everything that can have an impact on the environment. And when you talk about sustainability, when we talk about environment, and I think it do went right to the root cause of this issue, is financial sustainability. The impact that we have when you do not have when you're not getting revenue, when you do not have someone in your hotel, sustainability goes down the drain. Even if we are aware of everything, if we don't have money, we can't survive. So you have an impact in families, and families are a consequence. So becoming aware of waste, of course, there are people who are more sensitive to these issues than others. But this is a responsibility that should be owned by everybody, regardless of anything, and it should start at the home. We cannot delegate responsibilities to schools, especially because there are no schools right now. And this may be the moment of truth. When everyone was locked at home in the pandemic, we could figure out who are the people who are around us. What are the habits of children who are living with us? and while we were working, they were at school. So we are right now doing a global discovery of human behavior, and this might be the major opportunity for sustainability, for avoiding wasting water, for uh, doing better sanitation, taking a shower correctly. It's what Edu said. It starts with education. Now we're going into the election time, and once more we will hear all those talks of education's a priority and so on, and it's not true. And I think that society needs to get better organized to demand that from home, and events that create large gatherings or at least a volume of people can have a very important educational responsibility. And now with the level of sanitation required and the protocols that demand it, this is interesting because now we have better guidance so everyone can be concerned about everybody. Amazing. I agree 100% with you, Tony. I even wrote it down. I love when you talk about education, and that if eventually we cannot have governments that can, in fact, move towards this direction, the movement of civil society is quite necessary. I think that this is what's behind the main objective in this forum. It's a forum that is happening when we know that issues related to the environment, to sustainability, are under severe threat in Brazil in this moment. We holding this forum now, being able to bring this educational element in moving society and everyone, all of our industry, is undoubtedly a priority. I wholeheartedly agree. Let me get back to the last thing that Tony said. He said that without financial sustainability, financial feasibility, the issue of sustainability goes down the drain. What happened at the height of the pandemic, of the lockdowns? Many environmentalists said, oh, pollution has reduced, consumption has reduced, trash has increased because people were not at the office and were but were home. So what is the balance? What is the middle ground? Maybe Edu, Roberta, Toni, would you like to add a comment here? What is the balance between financial feasibility and sustainability that might have generated excesses in consumption versus the scenario where it shows a less consumerist world? What is this balance for you, the middle ground? I'd like to bring three sentences here that you can share. One of the things that bother me when we talk about the resumption, to resume, that means we would be working to go back to exactly what we were before the crisis. This is absolutely impossible from the intellectual point of view, the technological point of view, and it would be a mistake as the human race. This pandemic, with all the disgrace it might have brought in every segment in a country that has gone over 130,000 deaths, while some countries seem to have not had suffered at all. The only thing we can do is think about a new way, a completely different way to conduct businesses and the relationships for production, for working, for power relations, the relationship in homes and outside the home. One of the sides that we have to bring in is sustainability. And I want to quote here objective data so that you don't think that I'm just waxing poetically here. I saw the growth of consumption in supermarkets where restaurants are closed. Nobody's eating out, so you're buying more food to eat at home than before the crisis. As a consequence, this is one of the reasons why certain food items, it's just one of the reasons why certain food items have had their price being raised. We have seen a scandal with rice prices and so on. On the other hand, the economy also creates complications for sustainability. Discussing the kerosene issue, a colleague mentioned that biodiesel oil that should be 12% in the Brazilian fossil fuels has gone down from 12% to 10% because the soy production that remained here was not enough based on how much we exported. So this scenario creates challenges. And when we get to a program to restart our lives, I'm still trying to find, and I say that I don't know, that's why I wanted to go first, so maybe my colleagues can help with the answer. I'd like to have another word other than restarting or resuming, saying that the grounds that we need to use to guide our daily lives in the future have to be necessarily different, including new dimensions. I'm still trying to figure out that name. Can I move on? Tony, Tony or Roberta, where is that balance? Roberta has to speak. I'd like to say that I'm also looking for that word. Maybe this word does not exist to define that. I don't like the restart or resuming because it means going back to where we were, and this will not happen. And in second place, because I never stopped. What will I restart if I never stopped? I just continued. I made life gave me lemons, so I made lemonade. If that's what we have to do right now, that's what we'll do. And being able to cooperate both with partners, people who sponsor and support my initiatives, and my clients, and help them face this moment. So I also did not stop, but I agree that going back to where we were is impossible. And I think that I was talking to Carla. The right question for me, based on my beliefs, is not why, is what for. What the what is the goal behind this? What did this happen for? So one of the goals is that humanity will understand that things are going sour, that things should not continue the way that we're going, and even if we have people that are paying more dearly than others for this moment, this was a necessary moment. Was a necessary moment to reassess a number of things. Among them, why we were doing this. And just to complement the question, I don't remember where she was from Curitiba, right? That she asked Toni. I'm biased. I live with three men. I have my husband and two adult children. I come from a family where my grandfather would shut off lights and ask if you had stock in the electric company. And the reason was for economic reasons, was to save. We were a middle class family. We were trying to save money. In my house, it's there's no wasting food. What do we have today? Whatever's left from yesterday. There's no wasting food. These are habits that come from families, from people, and we take that to the companies, to the places where we are at, because institutions and companies, they are made of people. People who do not waste water at home will not waste water at their job. So we go back to what Edu said, education, and Ricardo reinforced education. Staying at home with your kids was very helpful. I was talking to the woman who does my nails, and I said, I lost my wage, I lost my fixed income, but what I'm seeing with my kids, the way they're growing, because they're learning values, moral values, and behaviors. I think that this is a bonus of the pandemic. going to philosophical sides, it's difficult to talk about this without waxing philosophically here, but we go round and round and we come back to education. I'd like to hear from each one of you what in 2025 would be a great achievement, a great milestone for Roberta in events, Toni in destinations, Edu in airlines. What would be a great achievement in terms of sustainability for 2025? Who wants to start? Toni? I'm going far here in my mind. Here's the question. We might have good intentions, but the world is divided in classes. And they have their privileges of having better education or worse education. And often we are guided by references. It is difficult to do a futurology exercise where references in terms of policy do not match the reality on the ground. One thing is being guided by examples. When we have a pandemic like this and there is no top-down event in terms of using masks and social distancing, we waste what is most sacred in these debates, which is the education of people. So today we do not have the necessary education and examples coming from the top, so we can project 2025 in a good environment. Because otherwise, in 5 years, we will be more evolved human beings. This evolution depends on media influences and depending on communication uh, influences and positive and negative examples. And we might miss out on a large opportunity for change and go back to how things were today. It's the Israelites on walking the desert. Moses goes up Mount Sinai, and when he comes back, everybody's partying and adoring an idol. So the issue we might have is what Roberto Campos used to say: Brazil does not miss out on an opportunity to miss out on an opportunity. We have a golden opportunity to educate the people, to guide people, and who's taking the initiative. And this is a series of organizations, of private companies, creating working groups to solve the issue in Amazonia. Because the authorities did not do so or did not create what needed to be done. So I don't know. In 2025, I just hope I'll be alive. This is my first challenge. And my second challenge is surviving. The third is to be able to contribute. Just being a little piece so the world can be a little bit better. 2025, what is your dream situation, your dream scenario, your goal? I think Toni was sharp and precise. That's why I like him and we're such good have been such good friends for so many years. I aim professionally to make some of the programs we discussed grow. I'd like to have using biokerosene in all the planes. I believe this would be great and it would be an advancement. But as a citizen, I believe that the last word that we need to mention here in this assessment by Toni, we need to start thinking better about policy and politics. This hatred of politics, that disgust with politics, pushing away from politics, created this bizarre country we're living through. And this is entirely the responsibility of people who have the ability for collective influence. So I think that from a professional outlook, our corporate outlook, from our postures, from our family positions, from the being honest about where we are. And Brazil's divided truly in classes. He's right. Whether due to their professional history, due to their heritage, they have the ability to be an influence. They cannot be allow themselves to be silent and see situations that we are seeing in the newspapers will become common. I agree wholeheartedly to what Toni said, and I just add this. Toni was so precise, so straight to the point that I think we we I can just open up a minute and a half, so each one of you can tell me what you think. Say whatever you want to say as your closing remarks. Roberta, in a minute. Everything that is important involves hard work. So we need to be strong to do what needs to be done. There's no point in thinking that everything will happen by itself. We usually say, oh, the market, the market, the market. There's a hashtag that we uses. Hashtag we are the market. If we want to change the market, we need to change. And if we need to want to change the world, we have to change as well. I believe that if we have better people, better children, better grandchildren, better people in general, everything will become better, because people who get to work and they come from an education where there's people who are responsible for everything, for sustainability, they will act this way on their jobs as well. Toni really said everything. It will be hard. If you want to be different, you will have to roll up your sleeves and you will have to work. Edu, tell me, what can you not go away without saying? I think I need to restate what I shared during this conversation. It's essential to have a to understand that having empathy is not something that comes from the heavens. This is built politically. This is built through debates, through school, and through work. So we are talking about the complex country where we live in Brazil, about a political posture, a philosophical posture, rigorously applied to the professional environment and to the world of work where the conflicts of opinion happen. I believe that this is the issue that I see from a conceptual standpoint. Thank you very much. Toni, what would you what you can't leave without saying? Just to summarize everything we've said, I think that the most important part is that we have to be open to a dialogue. We have to forget our egos, we have to forget our personal interests and think about the collective. And the collective has never been as important as right now to generate this collective feeling. Since we work with events, with tourism, it's more important than ever to express and to leave our fears aside, to break away with the fears so people can go back to traveling for business, for tourism with their families, or individually. They need to break away from the fears, and this will only happen if they feel safe, that someone is doing something for them, whether it's in the plane, is in the hotel, and it's in a restaurant, knowing that the other side is also concerned about their well-being, and this is what we did. And that's what I did by providing this line of thought. Well-being between people who are working and people who are visiting is the same. The responsibility falls upon everyone's shoulders. Carla, we're drawing up to a close. Did we meet your expectations? It was wonderful to be able to moderate this conversation with these amazing people, these very capable people such as Toni, Edu, Roberta. I leave this session better than I got in terms of development, in terms of what can you say? What can you tell me?
Ouvir cada deles falar.
I thought this was amazing. I thought that we could have this really deep learning based on your stories, your professional experiences, and how much this general movement is very enriching. I even wrote down a few things that I'd like to share and remark on. Sustainability, as it is seen today by most people, it is seen as a sector, as a department, almost an attachment in your life. And in one of the debates yesterday, Carol Wood, who's has a master's degree in environmental management, she used an expression that has really stuck with me. Sustainability has to be at the root. It cannot be just an additional thing. It has to be at the root. To answer you, Ricardo, when you say, well, how can we control this consumption, this exaggerated consumption? Sustainability is at the root. We start by establishing a virtuous chain that will lead with consumption, that when we are in fact considering sustainability at the root, inevitably we'll get to a point where to be sustainable, you will not be able to produce as much, and automatically consumption is reduced. And sustainability, in fact, has to be at the root. The other thing I really liked is to hear about the influence of each and every one of us so we can make the change. We know that the next generations are already more aware of these issues because these are already widely discussed in media, they are discussed in schools, and I think this is amazing because now we have four people here, you plus Ricardo, who are completely complete influencers in your area. You are part of it. You lead groups and associations and entities, uh, working groups. So having you here, you are icons. You are influencers in our industry. This is the assurance that we will be able to replicate and multiply, and we take this message to many, many people by your presence here today. I think this is an immense win for all of us. I also really liked when Roberta mentioned that this will be hard work. Yes, it requires hard work. Everything requires hard work. And I think that this is an issue that we need to choose what path we will follow. What is the way we're going to follow it through this work? We are in the tourism and event industry, and we know that this hard work, this work is among the 10 most stressful occupations in the world. We know that we will always have to work hard anyway. I think that what makes it different is the way we'll do it and what we will consider every time we have to work so that we can, in these situations, make these situations sustainable. I like when Toni brings up the issue of humility, of being humble. I think this pandemic, the virus, has helped us have this deconstruction in our contemporary society compared to First World War, which was one of the most tragic happenings in our recent history. I think this virus unavoidably leads each and every one of us as human beings, as inhabitants of this planet, to being humble, to learning that we are not able to do everything, that we can be the boss of the planet, that we can rule the principles of nature. We have to be humble, and we realize that there is, in fact, things that are greater than ourselves, which is nature itself, and that if we cannot humbly place ourselves in our position as cooperators, collaborators, as participants in these processes, as much as bees and ants and trees, nature brings us back to our position. So we have to lead cooperatively of everything that's there. We brought high level topics, and I have to thank you, Ricardo, that you're joining us. You're providing us many things in this amazing debate with these very important people. So thank you very much, everyone. Roberta, Toni, Edu, Carla, thank you very much. It was an immense pleasure to moderate this session, and I hope that we will have many other events as this one. So, this is the end of this panel. No doubt it's in our hands and we will make it happen. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We now have the Amazon panel about to start, so please hang around and watch it. Thank you very much.
Podemos começar com o próximo painel, então? Acho que estamos bem no horário.
We're right on time, so let's move on to the next panel, the Amazon panel. As we have done before at the end of all panels, and this is our proposal as well, we will share with everyone who's here for the first time and also for people who are returning the accounts for this event. This meets one of the proposals, one of the goals for sustainable development in the Global Pact proposed by the UN, where we discuss the transparency in meetings. So we're providing the accounts for the event. We have the global values per area, how much we've had to the moment in terms of contributions, considering the donations in 10,000 reais for the Xikrin people. We're still having negative results, so people who can contribute and think that it's possible, please, we have up on screen the QR code so you can make your donations so that we can cover the expenses in the forum and also make donations for the Xikrin people. So just scan the QR code with your phone and you can go to the website. They are putting it up so you can make your donations. Now, following out, we're having our second panel today about Amazon, people at Altamira region. They are connected already. Both of the representatives of the Xikrin community, they are at their village, so they do not have the internet during the day. So they moved to the National Brazilian Foundation for Indigenous People. They will be a little bit late, but we have people from the Social Environmental Institute, a reference both in Brazil and in the world when it comes to caring for and preserving and regenerating ancestral people in our biomes. We have them there. We will start with the video and then we will follow with all our guests to discuss the Amazon. Thank you.